the 1800 Respect logo appears and a title, working with people experiencing the effects of trauma. The speaker is Anne Law, a trauma specialist.
Trauma is an event where a person experiences a threat of injury or of death, of sexual violence. Now, that threat can be an actual threat or it can be a perceived threat, and that's really important to know that. Traumatic events can involve things like a sexual assault, someone being physically assaulted. It can also involve a serious car accident or a natural disaster.
The speaker is Carolyn, a sexual assault counsellor.
Trauma is a big word, and trauma covers a whole range of different experiences for people. But we know that there is something very particular about the experience of interpersonal violence and why it is different for people. When you're the victim survivor of an act of violence that's chosen to be perpetrated against you, it's a very personal experience held in your body. But what happens for victim survivors often is part of disclosure is that they are then blamed for what's happened or that it's minimised in some way. The other thing that we know about who perpetrators of violence are is that more often than not it's someone that's known and trusted. So there's the betrayal of the trust and the relationship and the rupturing that happens in that moment. One of the fundamental things to think about in working with the aftermath of trauma and in thinking about working in a trauma-informed way is to really ensure safety as the primary focus of your work. So once you have safety, you can establish that for somebody, you can connect with them. Validating and listening to someone's experience as they understand it is really important to support somebody to make choices and options about what they might like to do next and to facilitate those links if they choose to do so.
The speaker is Anne Law, a trauma specialist.
Looking at a person's needs through a trauma lens means a number of different things. For one thing, it's looking at the person's presentation. So how they present to you will look very different if you understand trauma. For example, if you have a person that talks to you about having panic attacks, they may feel panicky because they're encountering reminders of the trauma. So a woman that may have been sexually assaulted by a particular type of man may find herself having panic attacks when she sees men that look like her attacker. Another thing that's very important is to understand how a person may engage with treatment or may engage with a service. And it's very easy for a practitioner to see them as resistant or not ready to engage in help or as chaotic because they're not showing up to appointments when in fact they have a very good reason for not doing so.
The speaker is Carolyn, a sexual assault counsellor.
Having an understanding of trauma-informed practice is really a key thing. When you think about interpersonal violence and experiences of what that is for victim survivors, it's experiences of trauma and responses and reactions to that that affect all aspects of their life. The most important thing in understanding that is to know that quick fixes aren't what happens after trauma, that it can take a long time for people to recover and that support needs to occur over the long term. It's important to continue over time to re-establish safety, to keep re-establishing safety, to continue to provide options and for people to have as much control over decision making as they can. Not everybody who has experienced sexual assault or family violence needs or wants to have professional support. Certainly those options are available there for them, but we know that the vast majority of victim survivors out there don't necessarily have contact with a specialist service, but the important thing for them to know is that those options are available and they can choose to access them in their time and when they want to.
The speaker is Anne Law, a trauma specialist.
For someone that's been in a traumatic incident, it's very important to be able to provide some practical tools to help them deal with the symptoms they're experiencing as a result of the trauma. So it may be simple things to help them feel more in control of their emotions or to deal better with their relationships, and also to help them have a sense of hope and of the future. So it can be very simple strategies.
The speaker is Carolyn, a sexual assault counsellor.
There are lots of supports available for frontline workers. Working with trauma can be tough and you don't need to do this alone. There's supervision that workers can have within a workplace. There's spontaneous and formal debriefing processes that can happen. Workplaces often have EAP or external supervision that's available for staff. And there's also the opportunity for people to access secondary consultation from specialist services. What that means is that you can access a worker who's a specialist in the area of sexual assault or family violence, have a conversation with them about some of the issues that you might be facing in the work, and get some support around how you might respond in the most effective way and to feel confident in the work that you're doing.
The 1800 RESPECT logo appears and a title reads, "Responding is everyone's business." Contact www.1800respect.org.au or call 1800 737 732.